Time. Let's cross stateside right now and find out what's been going on in Donald Trump's hush money trial in New York. Yesterday, we had the first day of testimony from Michael Cohen. They say not just a former fixer and lawyer for the former president, but also really the chief witness for the prosecution. Well, let's talk about this with Amy Tarkanian. She's a Republican strategist and former chair of the Nevada Republican Party. Good afternoon to you, Amy.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Now, I mean, certainly the headlines that have come out from the trial were basically that this, of course, involves hush money being paid to the porn star Stormy Daniels, that he seemed to be a lot more concerned, according to Michael Cohen in his evidence, about Donald Trump, about how this would impact his 2016 presidential run if this story came out, which he's always denied that it's not true, than it would actually have on his marriage. He didn't seem to be bothered about what Melania would make of it all. What did you make of the testimony?
Sure. Well, in the statements that Michael Cohen had made referencing allegedly that, Trump had said some pretty callous statements in regards to Melania and, basically saying things along the lines of, how long do you think I'll be on the market? Not long. If all this were to unfold. Right. And so, I think while that statement and a number of other statements that were made, of course, are meant to damage President Trump's character and to remind suburban women like myself that he is not this virtuous, upstanding, moral human being with this upcoming election. The most important thing that we have to stay focused on is the matter of the accounting and the books and how this money was actually paid. And was he breaking the law intentionally or unintentionally? And so, they also tried to paint a picture of President Trump being this excessive micromanager. And so then basically entailing that he knew every detail, every check that was signed. He knew everything business-wise that was taking place. So that way nothing could get across his desk without his knowledge. And I think today, though, is going to be extremely telling because he's going to have the cross-examination, Michael Cohen is, and he's already admitted to lying on President Trump's behalf in the past. And so he's already said, I'm sorry, basically in a nutshell. I'm sorry for lying. I'm sorry for being so extremely loyal to this man at one point in my life. But here is why I did what I did. And here are the facts. Here's the ledger. And so that's what we're going to hear more about.
That's going to be fascinating, isn't it? But by all accounts, he's actually come across quite well in court. This is a man who was always, rough and tough, sort of, he said he'd take a bullet for Donald Trump. And then when the tables turned and Donald Trump basically hung him out to dry, I think as he's done with anybody who's been arrested, we know there were so many different people involved with his campaign, pretty much anyone close to him, prosecutions. Michael Cohen has already got his conviction. Part of the deal would be that he gives this evidence, but it's a question of how credible he is, because it's absolutely crucial that his evidence is credible for the jury, because, of course, he's the one who can closely tie this to Donald Trump, because paying hush money to Stormy Daniels, whether or not her story is true or not, is not a crime. It's not the crime he's been charged with. It's about whether or not the business accounts were basically faked to cover this up, and the implication that this would have had an impact on the presidential election campaign. I'm still not sure it would have, by the way. I think Donald Trump was right when he said back in 2016, I could murder someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because on X, there was actual footage of people being interviewed at his rally that was just held over the weekend in New Jersey. And there was a gentleman who actually said, if he even murdered somebody while he was standing on the steps of the White House, he'd still be my man. Wow. That
is quite something, isn't it? What is absolutely fascinating, though, is the polling. We've seen some at the weekend suggesting that actually if Donald Trump is convicted, that's not only will that not hurt him for many voters, it will actually help him, because this scene, as he's claimed, this is a witch hunt, this is politically motivated, stopping him campaigning, and that he will be able to basically play the martyr, see the establishment, the blob, the swamp, as he refers to it, they're after me. Very unlikely, highly unlikely, if he were convicted, that he would be sent to jail, so he'd still be free to campaign, and the other trials don't look like they will happen before November the 5th. But this would be utterly bizarre if this could actually help his chances.
Well, I think most voters have already pretty much made up their mind. And so those who are devoted to President Trump, it's true. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. They're going to stand by him 110% because they do believe that this is politically motivated. Whether if it turns out that he did cook the books for Michael Cohen, I mean, it's pretty clear and simple. I think once they get to that point in the court hearing, showing where, you know, the $130,000 was not just reimbursed to Michael Cohen at one point, but it was doubled. And so, you know, why was it doubled? It was doubled for, you know, interest. And why were their taxes, you know, evaded in order to make this payment? So you're not going to be able to get away for when it comes down to the actual details of the accounting. But people they don't want to believe it. They turn a blind eye because of all the other salaciousness that was brought into this, unfortunately. And the only person right now who I think could beat President Biden, because President Biden's numbers are atrocious across the board, even within his own party. You know, they wish that he would be replaced with another nominee. And so, you know, President Trump's in a good spot for himself, which is crazy to say.
It really is, isn't it? I mean, again, the latest polling showing that in the 5 of the key battleground states, because we know that this often comes down to those key swing states, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia and Pennsylvania, that Donald Trump is ahead in those, because basically we're seeing young voters, blacks and Latinos deserting the Democrats. And this is a fascinating thing, that the Democrats thought, you know, their future was kind of assured. And a few years back, people were saying, yeah, the Republicans are finished because, you know, they're only appealing to these sort of white rural voters and actually got this growing, changing demographic, and they're going to be voting Democrat. Of course, the Democrats then go all mad and woke and trans ideology in schools and all this nonsense. What a surprise. You know, more conservative black and Latino voters not so keen after all.
No, they're not. And I know that polling is only a snapshot, and I have a tough time believing a number of the polling companies across the nation nowadays, especially since most of us have cell phones and we don't have landlines anymore. So it's hard to get an actual accurate read.
Yeah, if they're polling people by landline, who are they actually polling? Yeah.
Right. And so I think, you know, for example, you listed Nevada, and that's my home state. And I have a tough time believing that he's going to win the state of Nevada. He lost here not once, but twice. Okay. But you never know.
Never say never with Donald Trump. Amy Tarkanian, great to talk to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Republican strategist Amy Tarkanian there. Quick word from Tom Slater. I mean, it is extraordinary what's going on in the States. I've always said, in terms of these trials, I think he's banged to rights to be taken to court for these cases, Donald Trump. But I also think the timing of them certainly is politically motivated. A lot of this stuff was known way back when, certainly after he left office in 2020. They didn't bring those cases then. They're bringing them now for political reasons, and it is backfiring horribly on them.
Absolutely. Everyone knows that. The district attorney in Manhattan was elected on a Get Trump ticket. That's exactly what they went and done. This indictment is incredibly complicated because they're desperately trying to inflate it into a felony, so therefore they can condemn him as a felon and have him run on that basis. But it's backfired awfully, and it has been interesting, as you were touching on there, the fact that you were reading that polling that came out from the New York Times the other day, and it was saying that Biden is struggling because of Trump's relative strength amongst young and non-white voters, which just completely explodes the narrative that we've had in recent years. So it just shows all bets are off when it comes to that election.
Absolutely, it's going to be so fast. It's going to be so much more interesting than our election, is it not?